New year, new anticipations. It feels natural at major milestones of our completely arbitrary calendar to look forward to the future, to reflect on what plans we've laid down. Well, I don't need to contemplate in anticipation. I can ask my good friend Captain Richard Scott, the time-traveling pirate. Hey Richard, how's 2022 going to be for gaming?
I told you to stop calling me about the future. No one is to know what shall be.
Oh, come on, just a little hint?
I said no. Now quit bugging me or I'll spoil the ending to One Piece.
I'm sorry, I'll stop.
Gets them every time. Well, since that was a bust, I guess we'll have to settle for anticipation after all. Hello all you heroes out there, and welcome to Hell Yeah Gaming's Top 10 most anticipated games of 2022. As a quick reminder, this is my personal opinion, so there are going to be some items on this list that you wouldn't include, and I'm willing to bet some you wouldn't even think of. And of course, what we're excited for changes as new information is released. So I'm sure there's going to be some really exciting things later on this year that haven't even been announced yet. As such, this is my top 10 most anticipated games of 2022 as of right now.
From Software has achieved something of a legendary status in the gaming community for their non-traditional environmental storytelling, punishing difficulty, and dark, borderline depressing settings. For the first time, they're deviating from their tightly woven environments in favor of an open world model, and the people are definitely responding well. Well enough, in fact, that Elden Ring won at the Game Awards for Most Anticipated Game 2 years in a row. I've got to admit, I'm definitely looking forward to it myself, as it looks like a breath of fresh air. Every previous title FromSoft has put out seems to be on the cusp of an impending apocalypse or amidst some dark horrors. But for Elden Ring, that apocalypse looks to have already taken place, and the world is so much brighter, more vibrant for it. It's like life itself said, okay, now that the bad stuff happened, let's start reclaiming the world. And I think that's great. What do you get when you combine 1 part supernatural horror and 1 part neon cityscape and mix it all together in a big pot of Japanese culture? You get Ghostwire Tokyo, baby! Ever since it was initially teased at E3 2019, it obtained a cult-like following, primarily for one reason above all others. And sadly, while the adorably charismatic Ikumi Nakamura is no longer working on the project, it has maintained a presence in the minds of gamers for its beautiful visuals, combination of fantasy horror with cyberpunk-style presentation, and wide array of ghosts and other spooks traditional to Japanese culture. At this point, it's difficult to pinpoint if it's even a fantasy, sci-fi, or some combination of the two. It feels to me very much like BioShock meets The Evil Within with yokai, and gods, does that just appeal to me on a very spiritual level. Number 8 is the only game on this list that I've had the chance to personally play, because I got the demo the same night it was announced. I then spent that evening playing out every way the demo would allow me to, covering every possibility, every choice, and of course, every strategy. Triangle Strategy is a top-down turn-based tactical strategy game, and I can't get enough of it. The glimpse of the world we got from the demo tells a tale of political intrigue a la Game of Thrones, though hopefully it can stick the landing a lot better. 3 major factions which each control a crucial resource and depend on each other for survival, going to war and attempting to outwit one another in ploys and tactics. Magic artifacts that serve to aid the characters, rather than direct the story itself. A dynamic narrative altered by choices the player makes. It appears to have everything a Jeff needs to get addicted, playing out the game over and over to get every possible combination of events just to see how it goes, while stretching my big wrinkle brain to achieve the best gameplay possible. It's no secret that I'm a massive nerd. It's also no secret that I love cartoons, and animation in general. I grew up watching cartoons from every generation, from the Renaissance of the 2000s to today's modern styles, and of course, all the way back to the rubber hose animation of the Roaring '20s. Since Cuphead The Delicious Last Course is only a DLC and not technically a new game, I'll have to give the number 7 spot to that other indie franchise inspired by rubber hose animation. Bendy and the Dark Revival is set to be the sequel to the breakout hit Bendy and the Ink Machine, and my body is ready. The first installment combined old-timey cartoons and horror in a way that I don't think anybody had done before, with existential dread regarding the lives of these cartoons, significant body horror, and a really fascinating mystery underlying it all. My greatest hope for Dark Revival is that it's able to properly showcase how terrifying the abilities of a rubber hose cartoon could truly be in the scope of the real world. If it can manage that, then I'll give myself entirely to the little devil Bendy. So here's something about me that hasn't come out on this channel yet. I love RPGs. And I'm not just talking about video games, but pen and paper, tabletop, roll the dice at 3 a.m., hyped on Mountain Dew and covered in Dorito dust RPGs. And my favorite one of all is the classic World of Darkness, Vampire: The Masquerade. With multiple video game adaptations slated to come out, my number 6 spot goes to Vampire: The Masquerade Bloodlines 2 and Vampire: The Masquerade Swan Song. Bloodlines originally came out in 2004, and while it was really well received, financially it was a flop. Fans have been waiting for a sequel for 18 years at this point, and the game was supposed to come out of March 2020, but troubled development pushed it back and back and back. As of right now, we still don't have an estimated release window, but in the meantime, a second Vampire: The Masquerade game has been developed and slated for release in May, titled Swan Song. Whatever may come of Bloodlines 2, I simply cannot wait to delve back into the world of darkness as one of the kindred, ruling the night and navigating a labyrinth of shadow and animalistic instinct. Blood grants life, and my life shall be eternal. I swear, I'm not making this list all about monsters and horror and demons on purpose. It's just that 5 out of the first 6 all fit the theme, but I swear, numbers 4 through 1 won't be like that. Until then, let's talk about the smoking hot, extreme action, demon summoning, quad pistol wielding witch Bayonetta. For a while, I've thought that teasing Bayonetta 3 in 2017, years before any real progress had been made, was a mistake. All the folks at Platinum Games have been able to say for 4 years is, "We're still working on it. We're still working on it," which didn't inspire much faith in the community. Now I'm thinking that teasing us so early was a tactical maneuver designed to create a wave of excitement and anticipation. We were beginning to doubt that we'd ever hear about Bayonetta 3 again, that it may have gone the way of Half-Life 3, when suddenly, BAM! Like a witch's heel to the face, they hit us with such a hype trailer. I think I'm looking forward to the actual story of this game more so than the previous 2 in the series, and it all has to do with the single most important aspect of our favorite badass witch: her hair. Bayonetta has always been known for style, and changing that style up, and here you can see that she's changed her hair to match what it looked like when she was a child, and I'm fascinated to see what sort of characterization has led to that distinct and important decision. And of course, I'm excited to once again bring Bayonetta's action to its ultimate climax. Finally, something that isn't all dark and brooding or haunted and spooky. Sonic the Hedgehog has had an interesting history full of emotional roller coasters. Ever since making the jump to 3D, the overall quality of his games has been a bit all over the place, much like the Blue Blur himself, to the point that it's easy to forget there was a time when this speedy, spiky adrenaline junkie was on top of the world, unmatched by any but the big man himself, Mario Jumpman Mario. Heck, even though I grew up in a Nintendo household, I preferred the Hedgehog to the plumber. And since Sonic had an absolutely stellar showing at the movies, with what looks to be an even more hype sequel on the way, an extremely well done remaster of the new Colors game, and a truly breathtaking trailer, Sonic Frontiers has got my need for speed kicked into overdrive. I am a little bit wary. After all, experimenting with new formulas has rarely been a positive experience for Sonic, and historically his best games are all about tight level design, which is the complete antithesis of an open world. Despite this, I feel like the folks at Sega can definitely pull it off if they play their cards right. Who wouldn't want to explore a big world rolling around at the speed of sound? Think of all the places you could freely go. All I can say at this point is that they had better have some rainbows to follow, or so help me. Every gamer I knew growing up was raised on Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat as their primary fighting game fix. And while I certainly played them too, they weren't what I had access to at home. For me, it was Fatal Fury that I sunk hundreds of hours into, from Capcom's chief rival of the time, SNK. These days, SNK aren't as popular, but what became of their flagship fighting franchise is still very much beloved. The King of Fighters began as a fun mega crossover of all their fighting games and exploded into its own universe, a sort of parallel reality to all their individual franchises, including my beloved Fatal Fury. Honestly, it's a fascinating series in how they've been able to keep making it last so long, maintaining enough improvements, innovations, and roster size. After all, 15 is a ridiculous number of entries in a crossover of this size. But where it impresses me the most is that across the whole history of King of Fighters is how it's managed to create a cohesive story that goes beyond big tournament, people punch each other. Every game has its own story, with every few being part of their own saga, with each saga shifting the main protagonist around in SNK's massive catalog of fun and diverse characters. Plus, it just has so much style! I'll be honest, as I'm developing my own fighting game, the main inspiration for the style and sheer variety of characters came from King of Fighters. I can't wait to step into the ring. Alright, everyone sing it with me now! Teenage Mutant Mother-lovin' Ninja Turtles. There was a really long period of time in my life when these guys meant more to me than life itself. I came out of the womb swinging around nunchaku and eating pizza. I would, no joke, no exaggeration, watch the original 1990 live-action movie at least once per day, every day, without exception. While I've branched out to other obsessions as time has gone on, the Ninja Turtles are without a shred of doubt in my mind the single greatest obsession I've ever had in my life. So you know that I played their old school beat-em-ups for thousands and thousands of hours. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge is a return to form to their classic 1987 cartoon style, and with modern technology I have absolutely no doubts that Dotemu is making it the ninjaist and turtliest game to ever strike from the shadows and disappear without a trace. Except disappearing without a trace would be a terrible business model, so ignore everything I just said. But it's still going to be amazing. Like so many games, it was originally slated for 2021 and was delayed due to, well, you know what's going on in the world. But as our good friend Shigeru Miyamoto once said, a delayed game is eventually good, but a rushed game is forever bad. Even just from what we've seen of the game so far, it already looks amazing. So with these necessary delays, it's going to completely blow my mind. I'm calling it now. Shredder's Revenge is going to explode my brain bucket. And can we talk about that title for a second? Shredder's Revenge. Sounds ominous as heck, doesn't it? Depending on how much freedom the developer was given, could this be a continuation of the actual 87 cartoon series? Shredder and Krang were banished from Earth. Their roles as the villains taken up by another character for the final seasons of the show. Is this their grand return, Shredder's Revenge? Or is it just a catchy title that's guaranteed to attract attention? I can't say for sure, but what I can say is that Dotemu and tribute games are full of huge turtle fans, and you can see the love they have for this property in every single frame of movement in these sprites. Look at that attention to detail. April as a playable character is also a totally baller move. And just look at all these characters. Some total C-listers like Chromedome that they've gotten in here. Side note, I just wanted to point out these foot ninja robots undercover in this office building. I don't know if it was intentional or not, but there's a visual pun that I really appreciate. Ready for it? These robots? They're office drones. God, I love the turtles so much. Check out the IDW comic. It's the single greatest piece of Ninja Turtles media ever made. Go do it now. But pizza power, a flying saucer food delight. Pizza power, oh, that's what makes us feel alright. Before I unveil my number one pick, I have to admit that narrowing this list down to 10 was hard. Like, really, really hard. Harder than it should have been. So, for various reasons, here are my honorable mentions that didn't quite make the cut, but still deserve some attention. Pokemon Legends Arceus. I've been a Pokemon fan since the first day they dropped in the West, and the changes they've made to the formula here are a big breath of fresh air. I just wish there was a little bit more that we knew about. Horizon Forbidden West. Everything about Horizon looks amazing, but I never had the time to get the first game, which is why it's a mere honorable mention. Evil Dead, the game. Look, do I need to say anything here? Evil Dead is a legendary franchise, and Ash is a mimetic badass. Enough said. Tiny Tina's Wonderland. I loved the first 3 Borderland games, even made a custom Magic the Gathering set out of them. And the Bunkers and Badasses parody of my beloved Dungeons & Dragons has me in stitches. Unfortunately, Borderlands 3 killed a lot of my enthusiasm for the franchise. House of the Dead Remake. We need more rail shooters. I maintain that it's a great genre and we just haven't been doing it justice. Besides, House of the Dead is a legendary arcade franchise that feels like cheesy bad horror movies in all the best ways. Star Wars Hunters. Look, I'm an enormous Star Wars fan. Chances are, if you put out something with the name Star Wars on it, I'll love it even if it's objectively terrible. My main gripe with Hunters is that we just don't know anything about it yet. Steam Deck. Technically not a game and more an expansion to the Steam platform, but this is easily one of the biggest advancements to get excited about in the gaming market, hands down. Kirby and the Forgotten Land. The new trailer for this game dropped too late in the video process for me to change up the list because of it. But if I reconsidered my rankings with this new information, there's a good chance it'd make the cut. Whew! And with all that out of the way, let's not delay things any further. My number one top pick for my most anticipated game of 2020 is the sequel to The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. Look, if you didn't see this coming, then you just flat out don't know anything about me. Legend of Zelda is my all-time favorite gaming franchise. Of course I'm beyond psyched for this game to come out. But setting aside my totally biased fanboy perspective, let's look at some other things that Breath of the Unnamed sequel has going for it. First, it's a direct sequel to the highest selling and highest rated Zelda game ever. Well, second highest rated, barely trailing Ocarina of Time by 2 points on Metacritic, but who's counting? The point is, while Zelda throws games out there with a fair amount of regularity, they almost never tackle direct sequels that star the same incarnation of Link or follow up on immediate events, and Breath of the Wild was a major landmark in a very big way. Second, this is Nintendo's second biggest franchise. The only bigger face of Nintendo is that red plumber who, you know, just happens to be the most recognizable face in all of video games. So that's a little bit of a big deal. Third, most fans are pretty darn sure that this game was supposed to launch last year for Zelda's 35th anniversary. I mean, it only makes sense, right? Most everything got delayed for world event reasons, and you cannot tell me that the Sky parallels were not intentional to be released alongside Skyward Sword HD, with the first teaser having been a whole 2 years before the first proper trailer. Anticipation has been building like a steaming kettle on the stove, ready to burst. Heck, a minute ago I called it Breath of the Unnamed Sequel because we still don't even know what it's called, all thanks to the mysterious and ominous statements from Nintendo that revealing the name would spoil part of the story. Which leads into point the third, the sheer amount of mystery and theorizing that has cropped up with this new sequel. If they can't even tell us the title until last minute for fear of blowing out our anticipation of the main story, what could it possibly be? I haven't the slightest idea myself. I've heard everything from a story that purges the spirit of demise from Ganondorf redeeming the Gerudo King, my personal hope, to Zelda being the protagonist. Notice we never saw Link's face, to a return to the Twilight Realm, my least favorite theory. I've got plenty of ideas and theories of my own, but those would merit entire discussion videos themselves. Instead, I'll just say that while the new formula introduced in Breath of the Wild is not my favorite form for the franchise, it's still Zelda. And that alone is more than enough to make the upcoming sequel to Breath of the Wild my most anticipated video game of 2022.
Thank you for joining me for this adventure and all adventures in the future. 2022 promises to be an interesting year for gaming and just for the world. I hope that you're just as excited for things over the horizon as I am, and that you share that excitement with the people all around you. That's what Hell Yeah Gaming is all about! So join me as we look to the future and bless it with a great, big Hell Yeah! I wonder how he would react if I told him that One Piece still hasn't ended before the sun's red giant expansion.